So tell me some of the biggest mistakes that artists can make.
Well, obviously the first big mistake that I see a lot of artists do is to just sign contracts without making sure they get it reviewed by an attorney, right? I mean, there's a reason why, I'm in business and why attorneys, are in business is because at the end of the day, people will sign whatever, and then when the deal doesn't turn out the way they expect it to, or the promises that were made in the agreement are not fulfilled, now they come to their attorneys after the fact. And sometimes it's very difficult for us to assist them because they signed this agreement, which is very heavily favored on the side of the record label or whoever the company is that they're doing a deal with. So the very first and foremost mistake a lot of artists make is in their zeal to become artists, and they want to be, they want to put a record out so badly, they'll not think it through and let, a manager or a record label or a third-party company just kind of like hypnotize them, like, oh, you want to do this, and they sweet talk them and they sign right here,
right?
And then they get signed and like, oh, we're stuck.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest mistakes. I think the second mistake is to the extent that you are able to be successful and you have money or you're getting money, now understanding that this ride may not last forever. You have a hit record today, you may not have a hit record tomorrow. So to the extent that you have this income, you got to pay taxes, you got commissions to pay. You got to be smart about making sure that the financial aspect of your career is really, really safeguarded.
Because you hear a lot about artists that they've been hits for 5-6 years, platinum albums, and then you hear, oh, they didn't pay $10 million in taxes. And it's like,
it's crazy.
I know I got to pay my $200, $300, $400 that I owe, right, and I can't get away with it.
Right.
How are these artists, not, first of all, on an individual level, how do you not figure, okay, I made $50 million last year, maybe I got to pay $5 million in taxes, or more, obviously.
Well, if you're making $50 million,
you're paying more than that.
Yeah, it's a lot more than that.
You're paying more,
and
like
hopefully at that
million.
point, you're talking to somebody. But it's people like in the middle, like make a couple mil, 2-3 mil, or make hundreds of thousands of dollars that they don't even file taxes. Now, a lot of them, either they don't have accountants, or I know I've been in meetings with an artist and an accountant, and the accountant will say, okay, you got X amount of dollars coming in, I have to take some money out to pay taxes. You got city, state, federal. I got to take some money out of that because you get paid a lump sum of money. I've sat there and the artist will say, no, I need it for this, I got to buy this, I got to buy that, whatever. Take it out of my next check. Now, it's your money, right? So the accountant can't force you to take the money out. You have to give them permission to take the money out.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you're telling the accountant, don't do this. They don't do it. The next check comes in. Okay, now, all right, so now I gotta take out the last checks and this check.
Double.
And you're like, oh, no, don't do that. Or pay just, 10% of that or whatever.
Right.
It just, starts building into a scenario where at the end of the day, the accountant's getting paid. They make sure they get their money out of it. It's like, okay, we told you what to do. You didn't want to do it.
Right.
Now, the tax man's hitting you, and now you want to blame it on us. I think Rihanna just recently settled a lawsuit that she had with her accountants, basically saying that, oh, the accountants ripped me off and they mismanaged my money. And I think the settlement is because, no, you spent money like you were crazy. We have records and we have emails where we told you not to spend this money, but you just tripped out and spent money like crazy. And now you're trying to make us look bad.
Right.
So at the end of the day, you don't have a case. Let's work something out.
Why is there not an organization that says, okay, guys, you're about to become rich. Don't make this mistake. Maybe they enter into an agreement that says, I'm going to let them pay my taxes and I'm going to let them do this. They no longer have to ask me. That way, they can be covered.
Now that's interesting. I mean, look, I recently saw, I know that the major athletic leagues, baseball, basketball, football, they have these sort of like seminars, when a new rookie gets into, the league, where they sit down, they tell them, they bring other former athletes to come in and, here's what I made a mistake and I don't want you to do it, whatever. And they still go and still trick their money. At the end of the day, it's their money. It's very, very difficult. I think that's a good point in terms of, but what happens is the record labels, they don't want to end up being like taxing authorities. They don't want to necessarily be the ones, now we're taking money out and paying your taxes and the whole nine. That's not their business that they're in. They're going to give you the money. You should have some people around you, your lawyer, whatever, that's saying, hey, you know what? Pay your taxes and take care of this and take care of that. And to the extent that you don't listen, the question is not so much that people don't tell you, is that you don't listen.
All right, so Amazon is offering a new service called the Amazon Streaming Services Contract. And with that, along with Spotify, with Rhapsody, with iTunes and other sources of distributing and collecting fees for your music, why do we need a label?
Well, first of all, record labels aren't going anywhere. And the primary reason is because they still have greater marketing, promotional capabilities than the average artist. And secondly, they control radio. Radio, despite Pandora, Spotify, and all these different, YouTube and all that, for the most part, radio is still the way that the average, listener discovers new artists and new music. And radio is still the way that you create stars. You just look at the Grammys and you'll see that almost every person that was nominated for any award was either signed to a major label or aligned with a major label. So at the end of the day, record labels are not going anywhere. They're smart. They've got percentages. They own percentages of YouTube. They own percentages of some of these streaming sites. Like they've got an ownership interest in a lot of this. With respect to streaming services, we're moving from a model where people are going to have access to music as opposed to ownership of music. The problem with a lot of these streaming services like Pandora, the complaint is that they're not really paying, or writers and producers and artists that create this work aren't really seeing a lot of money in terms of royalties. The amount of streaming and the percentage or the per 0.00001 cent of a percentage of a cent that you get for like 1 million streams is kind of pathetic. It's one of the biggest arguments that artists have, is that you go to Pandora and the record will be streaming for millions of views or millions of streams, and you're not getting a return. You're not really seeing a very huge royalty.
How do they justify that? What's the formula they're using to justify such a low payout?
The formula is they're paying a minuscule amount. Their justifications that they can kind of get away with it at this point. They're making deals with the record labels, and so they're saying, well, we're doing deals with record labels, and the record labels have to pay a percentage of what the record labels get from Pandora to the artist, but it's insignificant. So that's a real problem.
What else are you doing? I know you have a book coming out.
Yes, I got this little book here on how to really get a record deal in today's music industry. How to really get a record deal in today's music industry. And that'll be out in the next few months. And I'll make sure that you know about it so you can let your fans, your audience know about it.
Absolutely. Cool. Robert Celestin, thank you for taking the time and speaking with us.
And you can call me Bob.
Bob, thanks for taking the time.
No problem. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right.